Well, hey Taylor, it's good to talk to you about this song.
Yeah, what song are we talking about, David?
Leave It All Behind, the extended mix. I guess we're going back in time here, little time capsule.
Yeah, we
Um,
we left this song behind about 6 years ago, and then we rediscovered recently that we had a master of an extended version that we never released. So I'm excited to talk about it. I really like the long version, maybe better than the original.
yeah,
I think we had plans of um, kind of maybe saving the long version for an album or EP or something, and uh, we never did that. So, or it never really fit on the projects we came up with afterward. So yeah, this is fun.
yeah, it just existed as a single. The long version's what came first.
Yeah, and maybe before we jump into talking about this song specifically, we could just give like a brief overview of what like our musical friendship has looked like and what the Transient Friends kind of arc has been, just so like people know where this fits into the story. Obviously, we became friends in about like 2015, I think, and you want to tell about like our first creative project together?
So we met singing at or playing in, at church, doing music at church.
Yeah, we were at we got dinner at PDQ, and you were talking about, I think, just like how you kind of felt like creatively stifled or something, or like just kind of weren't sure what to do next. And
Sounds
I was
sounds right.
sharing about I was sharing with you about how like a long time ago, or a few years prior to that, I had done this kind of 12 Days of Christmas project of my own and challenged myself to like write a new song every day of the 12 days of Christmas or something like that. But our project then, you liked that idea and we liked that idea, and we wanted to see what we could come up with. At least for the first few songs, we kind of like set up a little bit of a studio in my apartment in Rinker, and you brought a bunch of your instruments over. I think you brought them over like every day for that, so it was a lot of setup. I think it wasn't like everything because you hadn't fully amassed your like synthesizer army yet.
I remember we used your laptop for GarageBand. I brought my portable interface, and then there was like an acoustic guitar, bass guitar. I had just gotten like my first like physical synthesizer. It was an analog model, the SH201, Roland SH201. And we loved just like messing around with the presets. It inspired a lot. But I mean, I think we kind of jumped into this musical commitment not fully knowing where it was going to go. And then the first day that we made something, we were like, this is cool. And yeah, the fifth day was the hardest,
Yeah, I don't care
the
about it.
Five Rings song. And then everything else, I don't know, it just worked out.
And I think
But
from that project, there were a couple of songs like where we're like, oh, like this sound like with a little more electronic synthesizers or whatever is what we were kind of like, oh, we like this. Like maybe we want to explore this a little more. And I think that's what kind of led us into the Transient Friends and kind of figuring out
yeah,
what that sound could be.
in my own music, I did another like everyday project. And that sounds pretty ambitious to most people, and it can be, but with our kind of music style of writing, and just like the pressure of this doesn't have to be the most perfectly produced, it's very instinctual kind of thing. I felt like a lot of some of my favorite creative ideas have come out of doing it, doing writing a song every day with the structure of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so
This
then
wasn't part of
yeah,
that project,
yeah.
but that is how we started. We finished the whole 12 days, um, put it on Bandcamp.
So I think after that we did Your Science was a song we came up with that and then we kind of went back also and took a couple of the 12 Days of Christmas songs and made them into Transient Friend songs over time. I don't remember exact, they're kind of a couple different ones. We did our first show. I think maybe the Resource Depot show, I think, was our first performance.
Oh,
But with
yeah.
that, we had kind of like started to amass our EP songs. I don't know if we would like release them all at that point yet. But that was East Coast EP, which
SoundCloud was where we put Your Science. I remember that.
that's right, yeah. Yeah, so we did East Coast EP. We did a couple shows during that time, and then we kind of took a little break, and then we had a couple singles, which were Time and then Leave It All Behind, which was around 2017, 2018 is when we wrote and released those two singles. And then I think it would have been after that we took a pretty long break of a couple years and didn't write anything else until COVID 2020 with Chain Reaction, which was also a fun project because that was one where we like, it had been so long since we've written anything together or created anything together. And I remember we kind of had like, if we gave ourselves any rules about it, it was just like, let's just do whatever feels fun and us in the moment. Like it wasn't high pressure, which is very evident if you listen to the song. That's kind of crazy and silly. We made our first music video to that song. And then we followed it up with Love Alive as another single. And we kind of were leaning into this like 80s sounds, like a little bit 80s pop influenced with those ones and some of our earlier stuff too. But I think that like eventually spurred us into what became Multiverse, our full length album that we released in 2022. So that was May 2022. So almost 2 whole years ago was the last time we did any musical creative projects together. Which is certainly bittersweet, and there's obviously lots of reasons for that we don't need to get into right now. We recently rediscovered that we had this track, the extended mix of Leave It All Behind, that we really like and wanted to release. So now we're here talking about this song. So I would love to ask you, David, and we can both share about this, but what do you remember about the creation of this song back in 2018-ish that stands out to you?
It's just like a good indie dance track. It's got like the 4 on the floor. I'm trying to remember how it started first. So
I think I might remember. I think it was just like summertime or coming to summer, and we're like wanting to create something that was like kind of a summery pop vibe or something. And we were like looking for inspiration and songs. And I remember one of the songs we listened to was a Rihanna song, and that beat really inspired you, which would have maybe We Found Love. Is that the song?
Oh yeah. I mean,
I think. Yeah.
Which it sounds the same. I want to point out it's really not like that different, but what makes We Found Love is this rhythm here. Like the same, it goes up bum 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 bum. So what I did was I went bum 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 bum.
Yeah.
And then
bum
bum bum bum bum bum to make it different. And of course, I mean it's super distinctive, but like Rihanna doesn't own that beat. Calvin Harris doesn't own that beat. And then mixed with everything else, it doesn't.
Yeah, the sound is so different. Like the tone of the song is very different too. It's so fun. It's fun because it's obviously a dancey track. Like there's this driving rhythm to it that's kind of very repetitive throughout the whole thing, but it also feels very low key. And I always think it reminds me of like a quiet, chill, like summer day when it's raining outside, just or you're driving or something.
Well, there's a lot of space created with this track. I think, I normally tend to fill the sonic spectrum with pads and synthesizers and guitars and, I'm just like stacking it all in there. But with this one, there just was a lot of space, which really left a lot of room for the vocal to shine through. And whenever that like kick drum comes in, it just feels so good in the beat. The bass is like lower in the mix and kind of subtle, but it just carves out such a perfect space for the vocal, in my opinion. Oh, I really want to call out these Sonar, like...
I love the Sonar.
They sound so distant and dreamy, but distinct, Yeah.
I think we've used that sound again on other things since then, haven't we? I'm trying to remember what.
I can't remember where.
A little bit of a signature for some Transient Friends sound.
The congas obviously make I think this is a Logic. Is this a Logic loop?
Loop.
I think it is, but I chopped it up and
Yeah, made a new rhythm with it. Which is kind of rare for us in this era. You were really big into like recording everything as much as you could yourself, and I think that makes some of our music really unique and beautiful because it's so organic.
well, that's what made, I think this one came together so fast because, I mean, look at it. It's just all loops. Like, look how I just looped everything out. I mean, there's arrangement and structure, but for me, like, yeah, the ability to be able to just record a pattern that I know is like the thing and then loop it out and then rearrange it as the song develops. And with this particular track, you're right. I do love using all my analog gear, and I think I had it all at this point. But I was like, for the sake of speed, none of this is real except for recorded by us, except
This is
for
not real. This is all just an illusion.
it's not, but it's all MIDI or like looped samples, except for the vocal, and it just created a really beautiful, bass.
A lot of the people have heard this song, the radio edit version, the single version that's been out. But one of the things that makes this extended mix unique is the intro and outro are a little bit longer and they kind of ease you into the song. But yeah, one of the components that maybe even kind of was like a starting point for the song, I can't remember when it came into the creation of the song, but you had recorded this sample.
I love I really admire John Hopkins, and a lot of the John Hopkins tracks have this beautiful ambient nature to them, paired with, obviously John Hopkins is like much darker and in way, but it's like it's major but dark at the same time. This sample here. It's just so beautiful.
And for those who don't know what that is, I think one thing about this makes this track really special, thinking about it kind of as like a time capsule of the era we created it in, was the musical swings were this installation in West Palm Beach on Clematis Street that was set up for a period of time, and it was a public thing built into this vacant lot on Clematis Street, and you would go up to these swings, and whenever you swing in the swing, it would make different musical notes or sounds. And so this what we're hearing now is like a bunch of different people are swinging, making different sounds, and it's all kind of creating this unique musical experience that could only exist in that moment.
Right.
But then we're kind of taking it and adding it into this song, which I think is really just so
Yeah,
special.
the swings, as you would swing, it would trigger different notes that were like obviously within a chord or like a scale, and they'd all work together, creating this like just, I mean, super mesmerizing vibe. And yeah, everything, even though it was like the same palette, everything was moment in time was unique and different. And something interesting too is I recorded this on my iPhone actually, but the iPhone only had mono recording at the time. Now with the iPhone you can record in stereo because it has mics on either end, and if you take a video it's automatically in stereo. But I was with a friend of mine, Daniel Heaney. I was with a friend of mine and he had an iPhone too, and we stood just like a little bit apart and we both recorded, and I was like trying to mimic like, a stereo field, and he sent it to me, and then I aligned it as best as I could, but of course trying to get that stereo, so I created this stereo field with just two mono recordings, which is essentially what stereo is anyway.
I didn't remember that. That's neat.
Oh yeah, well I've actually used this sample in, like, I've snuck it into other songs because there's different parts of this. I think it's like a minute and a half long, and there's different parts that I use. But
I love how you like ease into the song too.
oh yeah, it's just
From
like
that
it's like
sample.
coming out of a memory.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're like in this dream scenario. It's kind of like fading in. I always think cinematically, so
Yeah.
your like eyes are opening and the blur is like coming into focus, and there's a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia with that sound. It sounds innocent, childish, but in like, which is, you know, for us 6 years ago, brings us back to a different time.
Yeah.
And then the way this track just emerges out of that and then hits right here, I feel like, I don't know, it's just so sad. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe you have a different way of describing it, but for me, it's so satisfying. It just hits so well. The kick drop.
I love it. It also feels really, like the whole song feels very like soft. I don't know if that's like a accurate way to describe it, but like usually this kind of thing with a lot of beats, like it can feel a little like harsher or like, I don't know. It just feels like it's like so relaxing.
Well, the way you deliver it too is so laid back, and it's like kind of melancholic. The bass.
I love that, like the echo on the voice, the vocal too.
It's subtle. It's extremely atmospheric. And bring the congas back. And then here's the sonar melody from the beginning. Yeah. As I was sorting through this, I thought the vocals were cool. So you have the harmony for the chorus, or the melody. And here's my...
Is that you on the harmony?
My harmony, yeah. It's like really pitched and affected.
That's your real voice, right?
That's exactly what I sound like when I get up to a microphone. It just all changes.
Inhaled helium.
Love
it. Sounds
this section is cool.
Dark hair, those eyes.
So what's going on here that's pretty interesting is that your main vocal is like your normal voice with auto-tune, but the delay is only happening on the pitched down, the formant version, which what that means is this. So with auto-tune, this is you normal. So if I put this at 100, which is normal, and then
I love how the echo is like, it's perfectly in the kind of rhythm to fill like the space between the main vocal. The echo.
Well, and so what's cool about that, in my opinion, is that when, you know, we're using an effect as a songwriting tool, it's not just there to just be there, it's actually helping the song.
Long hair, dark side, you hear old lies. I try my best to push them away.
This Arpeggiator is an element synth from who makes this? Waves. This Arpeggiator is a Waves element synth. But I think when I made it, I just kept stacking notes to get this arpeggiation variation. And did I do anything with the, I think I automated some, like the note length.
I like how it kind
decay.
Of echoes off there, fades off.
But this part.
Let's build that pad.
Pump. And then the drop. That's so good. Let me show that.
So
How?
satisfying.
So that's the same. So this nylon synth piano instrument. I think what I did was I added a Valhalla shimmer,
As you do.
Valhalla.
Valhalla.
So, bum 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 bum. But now it's like just all, and it goes up, it goes up, it goes up, and then it just cuts in volume here. But it's so good. It just makes me so happy.
Me too.
I lied. This pad was recorded.
Hey.
I think it was our. Oh, it was the Korg, the micro Korg.
So classic.
Oh, and this noise.
That's sweeping.
I think that came from the Prophet. I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
All right, now we're gonna get into this part. Are we ready for this bridge?
Are you ready for it? I love the really high ones.
How did we make, like, it needed to sound big.
Like a gang vocal, yeah. Our falsetto ones are so.
Yeah. But in the mix and all together, it sounds right. Oh, and I just have to point out, I love the counter melody of the sonar pitch with the.
Is there an advantage to us recording all of these, so many different layers of this versus like if you were to just like duplicate a layer and change the octave or something? What do you think we gained from doing it this way rather than just like
The gang vocal?
yeah?
Well, I remember so you sang a normal part, then you doubled it, then you sang a high harmony, and then you sang a low melody, and then I did some stuff, and I remember in the room we were moving around so that we were getting different tonalities from different places in the room, which simulates how a real gang vocal would be recorded, because when you have a bunch of people in the room, they're all in different parts of the room. Obviously, if you record a real gang vocal, you're getting all of that compression and, you know, overtones melding into the microphone, which has its own benefits. And obviously you have like real variety, but just the two of us could create this gang vocal feeling that sounds pretty believable. You know, with just different mic plays. I mean, look at all the different pannings. I'm trying to think. So these were just the straight out of the mic tracks, and then it's all compressed and mixed in the bridge bus, which glues it all together, makes it feel like, you know, everybody had a microphone, which is one way of doing it.
Everybody did.
As opposed to like setting up a choir and like, you know, having lapel mics or you know, like stereo mics. That's another way of doing it too. So with the musical swings, we have this for like, you know, the intro. It's kind of looping, you're in a daze. And then here I wanted to go back into there's like a child crying.
A mother consoling her a little bit, or him.
Yeah, it's quiet but I pitched it up because I had to match it to the key that we chose. So this is the original sample, I guess.
Nice.
So
It's so weird because I've like been hearing it for 6 years, like heard it in the pitch of the song. It's so
Right.
weird to hear it in the original.
that's the real mother. like obviously real human
Or like
tone.
actual
But
pitch.
yeah, I like the way it ended, and I kind of went back into the loop because it felt like it would have been a good place to a quicker loop to like end the song.
Revisiting the song 6 years after we recorded it, what feelings does it bring up, or what does it kind of evoke in you?
For me, it just feels like a good song. It was just like so long ago, and sometimes you make things and you forget how they resonate or like how you feel about it. Maybe you're on to making something else, and when you had asked me about like, oh, remember Leave It All Behind, when I was like opening up the session, which I hadn't opened up, and I mean the session, it's called Dotted Line because I think we decided to call it Leave It All
Title.
Behind afterwards. But I was just like, it was very validating, I guess, in a way, to like open up this session and like have the memories and of us working on it. It was just such a sweet time. There was obviously a lot of other stuff going on, but the music that we were making was something that I'm, just proud, I guess. Like proud of. I mean, what about for you?
Yeah, I think similar things for me. Because again, I think musically this would have been like we had done an EP together, and we've had done the 12 Days of Christmas project. So I think this was us. We kind of got our groove, and so this, I remember it feeling pretty straightforward as far as like us creating this track, and I think it came together pretty quickly. So I think about like just like our creative synergy, but also like that would have been a few years into our friendship too. So that's really sweet to me to know that like that creative synergy like coincided with friendship closeness.
Yeah.
I think this also reminds me of like I would call it like a little bit of a golden era in like West Palm Beach. A lot of new like restaurants and creative things happening. Like the musical swings are literally in the song. Like that was one of the cool things. There were a lot of like new murals and public artwork and things happening. I lived downtown.
I agree with that.
Yeah, cool. Like coffee shops. I remember riding my bike downtown all the time during this season.
Downtown was the place. Downtown was cool to be at
Yeah.
that time
Yeah,
for
us.
people who lived there. Yeah.
And other, yeah. And it's pre-COVID, so there's like a whole other layer with that of just like this feels like our days were a little bit lighter, maybe a little less responsibility or something. I don't know. It's also to me it was like a really special season of life. Like I was at a kind of moving up in my career, like in a really sweet spot there. My sister lived close, and so I got to spend a lot of time with my nephew, who was a couple of years old at the time. My niece was born during that time. My sister graduated from high school. Like it's just like a lot of cool, sweet memories in my life that happened during the era of when this song came out. And I'm excited for people to see the music video that I put together that takes footage of the city and our lives from that era.
It brought me back when I watched the music video. Obviously, there's a lot of different personal elements, but for me, I was working on my own stuff. I was working on stuff with Travis Lambert in our band Perigee. I was working with you, and we had produced like 2 tracks in this era, but we were still hanging out a lot. There's definitely a vault of things that weren't finished.
Yeah.
And you describing it as a golden era of West Palm Beach, like that's such a perfect way to describe it for me as well. I had that same feeling.
So I think one of the other things with this song, it's fun coming back to it 6 years later and feeling like it just resonates at where I am at in my life lyrically and like tonally. It just feels like it's like a message from my past self encouraging me now that it's okay to leave behind things. Like we need to leave things behind in order to move forward into like a newer, better, like grown version of ourselves. And I think the way this song like feels like that just feels like it's like a very light burden and encouraging thing to like leave behind what came before. Like it doesn't feel like that's a hard thing to do. Obviously there's like hard things in like forgetting or like knowing that you can't ever go back to a previous version of yourself or a sweet time that felt like a golden era. But I think this song just like gives me like an encouragement that like there's like optimism in that. And there's this kind of, you can relax into who you are now and put the past aside, be grateful for it, be grateful for the memories and the relationships and even the hard things that came in life. So I'm like, I love that this song is kind of like being revisited for me at least. And even just like the specific week when we're recording this and we're talking about releasing this, like I felt like it has just been an encouragement to me, a good reminder. So yeah, I really love this song.
Yeah, Taylor, man, you know, it's such a unique, like not to sound pretentious or anything, but it's such a unique thing to be a songwriter, producer, have a band, these recordings, and like, you know, our friends like our music, and there are other people in the world that like our music, but like it's pretty small. Our following is pretty small. So it has nothing to do with that. But even just for ourselves personally, like, you know, these songs are time capsules for one, and how the meaning matures and like changes, because it meant one thing to even me personally then and you personally then, and 6 years later it takes on a different meaning and still speaks to us. And I think that the reason that happens is because we're honest with ourselves. The lyrics are honest and authentic to who we were then, and we are still a version of that person. And so, you know, sometimes it's like, what would you say to your past self if you were back in that era? And then what's kind of cool about songs is, what would you say to your future self? You know, and you don't know. I oftentimes, when I write lyrics, I don't really know fully what they mean or how they're going to impact me. And I don't know if you, I'm sure you experience that too, to a degree. But with this, it's just the meaning's changed and matured like a fine wine in a cask of my hard drive.
Thinking about this kind of evolution of like from 6 years ago to now, would love to hear, how do you think your musical style or abilities have changed or evolved in the last 6 years, or your songwriting? Yeah.
I think one of the things that I really appreciate about this track and admire is its relative simplicity to the way I've made things more complicated in like my production and recording style.
Overcomplicated, you might say?
Overcomplicated, to reference my own material. You know, there's still a lot of similarities. Like, I like this track. It doesn't sound old to me. Like, I can hear that I can hear what it, but I think for me, like, you know, when we were making this, I think I liked very much the electro pop kind of sound, you know, and I think now I'm a bit more drawn to more of a synth pop, like rock, alternative rock kind of sound. At least that's what my last single was. But the track before that was like folk pop and like kind of a folktronica, like electronic mixed with folk. And then the song before that was like kind of like a, you know, I don't know, like a pop beat, like just a straight up pop song. So I guess I've gone through a lot of different musical eras with my production style. And Transient Friends, I think one of the things that's cool about Transient Friends is, you know, because it's you and I together, it has that mixture which is unique to Transient Friends. And I think for the most part, the Transient Friends music has always, for the most part, except for a couple songs on Multiverse, has kind of been like lighter. Would you agree? Like,
Yeah, I'd say until Multiverse takes it in a little bit different direction. But
right.
yeah.
And so, yeah, normally I think I kind of resonate a bit more or gravitate towards writing about like sad things. I'm more comfortable there, like sad boy music kind of, but like droney or you know. And I think the Transient Friends, allowed me to really just focus on the music side of things and less so like the songwriting and lyrics, because that's where you were focusing on. So it was just like a cool, balance. It was a cool project to have alongside of my other projects, because it felt like, I'm only wearing this hat, this particular hat. I only have to wear this hat in this band, and it was nice to have that spread out responsibility that felt pretty even, So I mean, that's how my musical style has changed. But I don't know if this is a great place. I don't know if this is a good place to talk about what's coming next for you. But in the course of Transient Friends to some of the stuff that you've been working, how's your musical style like adapted and evolved, since this particular track?
Yeah, I think I'm still figuring it out. I think making stuff with you, and specifically like under the Transient Friends umbrella, has given me confidence in my songwriting abilities, and like even like how we structure things, or how I can write things quickly, or figure out a melody or something. Just to talk about like briefly an aside of like our process in writing a lot of our music, and how our roles kind of separate in that has been, and I think with this song probably it happened this way too, was like you would start kind of working on like a beat or a melody or a loop or a riff or something, and then I would kind of take that, and while you're like doing stuff on the computer to like figure that out, or on your instruments, I would like be off in the corner like, okay, I'm gonna write like a lyrics that go with this. That's how most of our music, probably up until Multiverse, I think everything was pretty much done that way. There were a couple songs in Multiverse that I was starting to like, dabble in Logic, and I kind of made a couple demos.
You explored. Yeah, you explored first, then we produced, almost like a more traditional songwriting kind of process.
I think working with you on stuff, I like was able to like pay attention, like, okay, like what makes this sound, makes this work, makes this song work structurally, or like what are the layers we're putting into it. And so I think, and I've sent you a lot of my demos over the last year of, and I think you can probably see like an evolution of like growing in my, like things sound a little more polished more recently than they did even just like a year ago, or definitely 3 years ago or 2 years ago, whenever I was sending you demos for Put Up a Fight, or Incommunicado or something like that is like drastically different from what the demo is to like the final product.
1984.
Yeah, that's the other one. That's fun. Could do a whole other video about that one. With my own stuff, I think I started out writing songs on just like a ukulele, because that's the only thing I knew chords on, and it's like literally I only know like one, like the key of C, like 9 chords or something.
That's all you need.
And yeah, it's enough to like figure out the melody, and then if you want to change it in a different key on a different instrument or in Logic, like I can do that. But that helps me figure out how the song is going to sound and like how it's going to flow. That's a lot of my songs start that way. I think working with you on stuff, even from our initial songs, I can remember like on our first song for the Christmas project, How Rare, How Strange, How Curious. You were just like very complimentary of like my lyrics and songwriting on that song, and we wrote it within minutes. Like I think we had written the whole thing, and then obviously it took longer to record it, all the parts. But even just like you affirming that in me in the moment, like that, I know that gave me confidence to keep working with you. And I think we developed an honesty. Like we could say like, oh yeah, like years later when we got to working on Multiverse together, we could say like, oh yeah, like this song Incommunicado, the way I demoed it, like was just like not really our vibe, and you were able to bring it into a way that made it sounds really good. But we're able to be like honest with that, and there's not like hard feelings about it, because we both just want to make the best thing.
We wanted to make the best thing, and we had developed that rapport where we could, and honestly I think, if we're talking about that, I think 1984 was the only one where we were like had any like real disagreement that we had to sit on and then kind of process through. And I think we were thinking about serving the song. It wasn't like an ego thing. It was like the song was how do we make the song the best? And we got there, and I think that was like a cool process. And yes, that could be its own from demo to completion, which is a cool. But I just wanted to go back to the very first thing we made together. This was the first thing we ever made.
That's crazy to think about. December 2015. Almost 10 years. 9 years ago. That's really special.
So,
and like we went from GarageBand, and it still sounded pretty good on GarageBand, to like now, where we have developed our skills and honed our ear and our taste and ability to like translate that into what's in the song. So as we wrap up, like maybe we can share a little bit more about some of our current or upcoming creative musical projects.
The last thing I released was, so I feel like for me, music's actually kind of slowing down. For you, it's picking up, but for me, it's slowing down. I think after Multiverse, for like various reasons, and just like, you know, I wrote a lot of music in that era, and I was expressing a lot of feelings, and then I kind of just like, I feel like I got it all out in a lot of ways. I think my life changed when I met my wife, Katie, in terms of like, when we were dating, it was less so about like sitting and contemplating like sad boy feelings, and I was more just like, the longing had like been sort of realized, and you know, with a person, like with her. And so I think when I would go to write, I was so used to just writing in this like, you know, melancholic space, and I wasn't really feeling that, so it was kind of hard to write in that space. So I started trying to write songs about her and us, and you know, that is difficult for me in a way, because it's easy for me to sing into a microphone like, this sucks, and it's kind of harder for me to sing into a microphone like, hey guys, it's all cool and great and fun. The last one I wrote, I found the longing, because we were like not really long distance, but we didn't live in the same town. We were like, I was in West Palm, she was in Lakeland, so we would like, you know, FaceTime, text, call every day. There was a lot of ways that technology exists to make communicating and like connecting as possible when you're not with the person. So the last song I wrote is called Heartbeat. I had just gotten an Apple Watch, and there was this heartbeat monitor feature that you could share with someone who had an Apple Watch, and Katie had an Apple Watch, and I don't use this feature, but I thought it was interesting. And when I got the Apple Watch 2, I was like learning about all of its different settings, and you know, this little tiny screen on my wrist. And I remember being out with friends, and I was playing with the settings on my watch rather than like hanging out with my friends. And I quickly realized that and was like, oh, wait, I'll just deal with this later. But kind of all of those ideas, the longing for like physical connection, you know, with the long distance there, birthed this song, Heartbeat. And it's my latest release. I started it like 2 years ago, over a year and a half ago. I've been sitting on it for some time, went through a lot of different versions, iterations, finally got to a place where I felt like I was happy to release it. I put everything into that track, and I just got kind of tired of like writing music. I needed to take a break, and now that it's out, like I'm happy that it's out, and it feels so satisfying to put it out there. And you know, I guess one of the things I liked about that era is it felt like we were just making stuff and having fun with it. Yeah. And I feel like I'm in a place now where my releases feel like they have to have some sort of purpose behind them. Because of that, there's just needs some space from music, I think, for a minute. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Tell me about the projects that you're working on, what you're excited about, what's coming next.
As far as my creative projects, the current project probably after, well, depending on when you're watching this video, July 19th is Leave It All Behind extended mix single. July 19th, 2024, that is. As far as my personal creative projects, I will be releasing my 10th novel later this year, which is crazy that I'm at that number. It's the third book in a series, Magic City Wonders. So it's called Nightmare Array, and it kind of concludes the story of the two books that came before it, which I'm really excited about. I'm in the editing process right now, kind of going through it with a fine-tooth comb and like checking to make sure it's still flows right, and that if there's any inconsistencies in the plot from the first or second book or little details, like I want to make sure those things are all really tight. But also I'm really excited about rereading it. I'm a few chapters in, and I'm just reminded how like excited I was about the story when I started writing it a couple of years ago, and how excited I am for it to be out in the world soon. Kind of in the background or in between that process, I've been working on a lot of solo music over the last probably like 9 months to a year. I have like close to 30 demos of different tracks. Those will not all ever see the light of day as actual release songs.
They're on my phone.
They are, and they're on my computer. But I'm really excited about, there's a few of them that I'm really excited about to get out into the world. And I think similar to you, I find it's easier I write a lot more music when I'm like processing emotions rather than like when I feel really resolved in them, which maybe I never feel fully resolved, but I don't really write happy songs either usually.
That's a great way to, processing versus resolved maybe is a better way of describing it than sad versus happy.
So I guess I've been processing a lot, so I've been writing a lot. And some of them I'm just really stoked about. I'm like, there's some of my best things I've written, like most honest lyrics, most polished, like catchy hooks and melodies. And then I was sharing earlier that I also feel like I've just grown in my ability to like figure out what needs to be on a track to sort of, even for the demo to sound like more complete. Still like got a long way to go as far as like learning mixing and all that stuff. So gonna have, friends to help with that part, but, really excited about that. So hopefully there'll be a single out at some point in the next year, hopefully sooner.
Looking forward to it.
You'll be the first to know about it. So that's exciting. I also want it, like you were saying, I want to release things in a way that they feel meaningful. Each of those songs is meaningful in a different way. So the process right now is like narrowing that down while I also continue to write more music to what are the songs that like deserve to be out in the world and that I think people will enjoy the most and resonate with. So really excited about that, and we'll see where things go from there.
Awesome. I'm really excited to hear about your new projects and hear them as they develop. Well, what a wonderful trip down memory lane. This has been really cool to like go back and explore.
Yeah, it has.
These songs, specifically Leave It All Behind, kind of just randomly came back into our lives.
Yeah.
So it's definitely fun to talk about. I love breaking down like how the thing like comes together. So, thanks for obliging me.
Thanks to you too, David, for sharing about the process. I know the technical stuff is like your specialty, so it's fun to see the breakdown. This has been really fun to look back at this song, and I'm excited for everyone to hear it. Depending on when they watch this video, it could already be out. Please go enjoy Leave It All Behind extended mix by the Transient Friends and Taylor Thomas Smythe on your favorite streaming platform.